Thank you for attending this late session. Just quick introduction. My name is Larry Carvalho. I'm an independent analyst, and I bring great panelists to the stage. And we are going to talk about compliance as code. First of all, the caps we are all wearing is the CNCF project that's in Sandbox right now. And that's the open source project that we are going to talk about a little more. Compliance as code is really a business liability, and you will learn how to achieve continuous compliance with automation and standardization at this session. We will start with the panelists giving one slide. They'll introduce themselves. They'll talk about their slide. And for those who have questions, there is a mic back there. If you can stand up there and ask your questions, it would be great so that we can record it properly and have it for those who cannot attend and attend the replay. So with that, without further ado, I'm going to start with Robert, who will talk about your session. Please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Larry. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Great. Hi, my name is Robert Ficcaglia. I'm with Sunstone Secure. We started in 2019 primarily around the open source community as a group of senior CISO executives. And our core area is public sector, healthcare, heavily regulated industries like pharma. And from day one, we were trying to solve the problem for ourselves, how to manage compliance in large enterprises with minimal staff, reduction in budgeting, and yet an increase in attacks, an increase in threats. And from day one, compliance as code is an investment we made. We built out knowledge graphs and have applied machine learning to that over the last 5 years. Now that's actually a common way to do things called graph RAG. And we've been involved in the policy work group in Kubernetes, working on formal verification with NIST and other groups. And we are contributing all of our AI-related security and compliance to AInativeSecurity.org. So glad to be here. Looking forward to a great panel.
Simon.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Simon Metson. I'm SVP of Engineering at EDB. We mainly do Postgres, worrying about data, how that gets stored, how you process it in various systems, AI, analytics, what have you. I've been working on kind of cloudy products for longer than I can remember, 13 years or so. And one of the things that our team had to take care of is taking our environment through SOC 2 audits and PCI audits, things like that. And so being able to sort of automate those problems away. I remember one of my infra team was sort of leaving the office and 7 o'clock one evening, which is sort of ashen, and it's because he'd spent all day pulling lists and lists and lists of servers and ports and all this kind of stuff for a sort of very paper-driven audit. And it's like, this is not the way to do stuff. So we started building some software to do it. That became a project that we open sourced 5-6 years ago called Audit Tree. And we're working with the OSCAL stuff and Compass to sort of see how we can kind of plumb that in and maybe bring it into CNCF in the future.
And Anca, if you can say something about the open source project also, that would be great.
Of course. Hi, everybody. My name is Anca Seiler. Thank you for being here. I'm a distinguished engineer at Red Hat and IBM, and I have 2 minutes now, 1:45, to tell you everything about compliance as code, which is impossible. So I packed as much as possible on that slide that you can analyze afterwards yourself. I'll just give you the keys to that. So in that picture, you have the horizontals, and they are the various layers going from compliance as code as lower as policy as code. And this is what Simon talked about. And on the top, you can see the regulations. They typically come as PDF spreadsheets that cannot be used in a programmatic way. So the compliance as code, particularly OSCAL, Open Security Control Assessment Language, is a NIST standard for compliance as code, provides schemas for specifying your controls catalog. This is there in yellow. It allows you to specify for technology how those controls are expressed as rules. And then at the policy as code level allows you to map to the actual check IDs and the evidence that is associated with that. So these are the horizontals. Now the verticals, we give examples for each of those horizontals. One is in the DORA context and the other one is in the EU AI for AI. So there are controls, rules associated with that, and so on. If you want more details, now you can look at the text. You go on the left side of the screen and you can see the OSCA link where you can go and learn about the details about compliance as code and the artifact schema. And you can also look at our CNCF OSCA Compass project that provides an SDK trestle for the OSCAL and also a platform on top of that, so it allows you to manage all the layers that you see in the picture. So the need for this compliance as code became very evident when we are bombarded now with many new regulations, and also the industry is moving from annual and quarterly audit to continuous compliance. So here is your solution.
Yuji?
Hi. Hi, I'm Yuji Watanabe from IBM Research Tokyo. I'm working on the how to apply the AI and Gen AI and agent technology to this policy as code field. And this area, as you know, the lot of the different persona work involved, and with a different knowledge and different experience, different tool. So the process is very complex. And now we have AI, Gen AI and agent. So we are trying to apply how the agent, AI, Gen AI can help the whole entire process. We started from the use AI for analyzing the existing policy document, internal control and requirement document, and all the knowledge from the different persona. And then the new regulation comes in, the agent, Gen AI is used for analyzing what can be mapped to the existing control, as existing framework, and find the gap, then identify what is missing, what needs to be filled, then apply the Gen AI to generate the control, and this is overall the process. So we are trying to use this agent and the Gen AI to improve the overall speed and efficiency. Yeah. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Yugi. So we're going to go through some questions that we have already, prepared for. For those who have any questions, whatever you don't understand, we got a great panel here. Please make use of it. Please stand up to the thing when you're ready, and I can get your questions to them. So Anca, how do you prove the AI used for compliance is itself trustworthy and operating correctly?
Okay, so
and do you want your slide back again if you need to talk to it?
I'm fine. Yes, it's so you have seen that now we have Gen AI, right? And we have in the pipeline multiple agents to help with the process. And obviously the question is, how are we able to evaluate? And the answer is benchmarking. So together with the agents that Yuji mentioned, and the first one for the assessment for policy as code is also available in open source, we also provide an IT bench. If you are Googling for IBM IT bench, you are going to see the IT bench with 2-3 samples of agents for CISO compliance assessment, for SRE, for FinOps, and they come with about 50 scenarios. And they are modeled in a real environment. They are deployed in a real environment to test the agents that you can subscribe. You can subscribe your own agents. You can use the ones that we have already to play with, or you can register your own, and you can test them against those, in the case of compliance, 50 compliance scenarios. These are typical CIS benchmarks that are made available, deployed in a real environment with Ansible, with OPA for RHEL. and for Kyverno, and for OPA. So this is the way that we can set up benchmarking and provide a comparison not only between how the agents behave, but also against a standard of what is the right answer, because we have obviously the ground truth together with the 50 scenarios.
Great. Okay. So next we'll go to Yuji. How do you approach natural language compliance as code? This could include crosswalking various regulatory frameworks and down to specific controls, as well as AI ingesting, ragging, tooling with many, policies and procedures and round-trip engineering. So,
Yeah, initial input is natural language text, so it's highly very abstract and non-operational. So the first use AI to extract the information and find mapping with existing compliance framework and the requirement. That part is the first layer. So if we are doing the layering approach, first layer is analyzing the document. Then second layer is a log. So many the curated body of the document around the framework, the control requirement is picked by using log mechanism that input to the AI. Then AI analyze the crosswalking, helps the crosswalking map process. So find the commonality between the multiple the regulation. Then if the new regulation requirement is covered existing the control, then it's okay. But if the new some delta is fine, that part is filled by the policy generation and also that this part if the policy exists, some implementation exists, but some changes required, we use the agent to identify what is the delta requirement and how to change the existing policy to the new policy. That part is also done by the agent.
okay. So next question is to Simon. What operational challenges does a cloud-native environment present, and what about the opportunities that you get?
So from a sort of compliance point of view, I think there's my answer to both questions begin with a D, which I thought was cute. So the challenges come down to the dynamism of the system. So you want to have an autoscaler. You want to have things where pods are ephemeral, coming in and out of existence. You want to be able to enable developers to spin up a database through an operator or whatever. And that's how you get the benefit of the cloud-native environments. But that's completely at odds with some of the controls and expectations that those controls have. So we're looking at FedRAMP for some of our products, and there's things where, like, this change requires a general to sign off on it. Right? So having an API that lets you spin up 1,000 of these things, the general is not going to be pleased with that, right? So that dynamism causes problems. So not only do I need to sort of measure and track and collect evidence in this sort of rapidly changing environment, but also the policy needs to change and adapt and pick up that kind of real world, new brave world sort of thing. But the benefit of the cloud-native stuff is another D, declarative, right? I know that if we provision a database through CMP, for example, it's always going to be the same thing. It's the same image. It's the same set of ports. It's the same behavior. And so I can use that operator to make sure that when I make another one, it's the same as the last time that has been approved by the general. And that can then feed into policy and behavior and procedure, because it's not about every time I make one, is it okay? It's, I've made one once, was that okay? Okay, now I'm happy with making more of them and stamping those out. That declarative nature that you get from Kubernetes, it's a lot harder to do with other sets of tools. You can do it, but Kube really gives you that opportunity.
Anca and Yuji, you want to add anything to that, to the challenges or opportunities? Or we can go to the next question. Okay. So I'll go to Robert. We're all thinking about cloud-native compliance, but what would AI-native compliance look like?
Well, actually, I'll answer that and
Yeah.
continue the conversation on the challenges that Simon was speaking to. As you were saying that, I contrast cloud native confidence in that declarative code with what now if agents are generating that code. And that's the kind of design I'm seeing. In fact, the great part about KubeCon is you come here thinking you have this bespoke problem that no one else has ever seen. And sure enough, this morning I went to a great talk Google gave this morning about using AI LLMs to generate their controller code, right? And the point they made is the same point I'll make. They generated 1,000 controllers with their LLMs. Now that someone had to go review those. So now the task has just shifted to a different type of complexity. So if Kubernetes and cloud native today is about the comfort zone around declarative, how do we transition to a model where agents and prompts define your system? Now how do we build the skill sets for those humans who have to be part of that trust loop? How are they going to evaluate? How are they going to keep up with the scale of code that's being generated? Because you might not have humans crafting very small blocks of code that are highly tuned. It may be more advantageous and scalable to have the agents generating thousands of blocks of code that are reassembled and dynamic every day. So one example of how FedRAMP breaks down in that world, or NIST 853 breaks down, is they assume you have this static inventory. And they tweak this to say, okay, well, we understand containers may be a lot more of them, and they may be ephemeral, so at least give us a container image inventory. But how is that going to scale when you have agents generating the images, generating the deployments?
Even without, right, you have the problem of, I have an immutable image, so how do I do a CV patch, right? That's the fun one. I have to change the image to fix the CVE, and I have to fix the CVE within 24 hours or whatever the timeline is. So you've got that dynamism is just prevalent across the whole system, and you've just got to work out how to deal with.
So I think it's that we're going to be orders of magnitude more dynamic. The speed is going to have to increase, and then the human ability to keep up with that code and the risks and the threat model that go along with that, that's going to be the biggest challenge I see in the next.
Yeah, I can add one more. As you execute all these new controls, and let's say that we solve all the AI needed controls and the DORA and all of the kind. One problem that I have seen, if you are just starting on that journey, you will notice as well, is the cultural change that is needed in your compliance team to move from the current manual processes and screenshots to technology. And the main problem that is there is that these teams are by design non-technical. And they are right now introduced in all this world, not only on the technical level, but with agents and with AI, and they are overwhelmed. So I think one thing that you need to have in your agenda is to help those teams bridge the gap into the technology, either with support from agentic advisors, right? All technical team. It's much easier for a technical team to be upgraded to skills that deal with compliance than other way around. So this is one of the challenges that.
One of the things that we've been trying to do and think about is how do I turn a compliance problem into a software development engineering problem? And so if I can use an AI to sort of say, I don't know, the control is that all data in REST in the system must be encrypted. And it's like, okay, cool, I can understand that. But if you say that means that Lux needs to be turned on every server, suddenly it becomes a configuration management problem rather than a compliance problem, and then you get into the evidence collection around that. But turning these problems into things that SREs, DevOps teams, engineers can kind of rationalize really quickly, or even use an agent to sort of turn into some system, I think that's how you get around that sort of thing. And the roles sort of are slightly different, and it becomes that sort of communication between different types of team, turning the control into a thing that can become code or configuration or an agent prompt or what have you.
Great. So the next one is for Yuji again. Is there any questions from the audience, by the way? I don't see anybody standing near the mic, so I'm taking that there isn't any yet. So Yuji, the title talks about speed, where we talk about speed of innovation. What are the current metrics, and how do you benchmark them? And then the other one is a little loaded question: is real time really realistic? And how do you audit agents in real time?
Yeah, thank you. When we say the real time, actually we are not expecting the real time assessment by the agents. Actually, we are not fully rely on the whole verification and assessment by the agent. That's not today. But by bringing the agent, we can improve the overall compliance life cycle. Actually, for example, the agent can detect the new compliance requirement change, then or some control change. Then agent can navigate the relevant stake persona to do the action, and it can be a part of the CI/CD pipeline. So we can bring the compliance activity in the more shift left form way. So that's a kind of efficient improvement to brought by the agent. And for the benchmarking, one approach is how long the overall new requirement support. That is one metrics, and another metrics is how many manual touch point included in the doing some supporting new change. So that kind of metrics is used for evaluating the effectiveness of the Gen AI and agent. And the last one is audit for the agent. So actually, that part is really the difficult part, the challenging part. This is not specific to the compliance, but if we bring the GenAI agent to this regulated scenario, that auditability is really important. So one approach is agent explainability. So keep all the trajectory of the agent is recorded, and provide easy transparency to the human verifier, and keep the record for the later compliance or other compliance evidence. That type of things is approached for the agent auditability today.
Yeah. Any thoughts from you, any of you? Okay. Okay. We'll go to the next one. Anca again. What are the realistic timelines and budgets for digitized enabled compliance as code?
Yeah, this is a question that immediately I get when we're talking with our customers, when we bring the compliance modernization and compliance digitization. We have a very good white paper from the time before GenAI, around 2019, by Coalfire, where they made an assessment of the total cost of ownership, TCO, when we introduce compliance modernization. And they showed that using OSCA-like technologies, it will reduce the TCO for compliance by 50%. And now we see, as we introduce accelerators like the one that Yuji mentioned with agents, this becomes much more complex cost evaluation because of, on one side, we have the reduction in the development cost using agent to develop code. It is much more accelerated. But on the other side, we have all the additional work in creating the benchmarks, in creating the controls, the totally new path for explainability, like Yuji has mentioned. So I think right now we need to have a new assessment. I think the original 50% reduction needs to be reevaluated. Definitely there is an improvement. I don't think we have the choice not to go into the digitization for the reasons that we discussed at the beginning of the call, right? We have so many new controls that are upon us. We are moving to continuous compliance, especially with AI. I cannot rely on an audit that was done last year. So I think this whole thing needs to be reevaluated and provide the new cost expectations. Timelines, I always compare compliance as code to our experience with infrastructure as code. I see a lot of you here are very young. I lived to see the infrastructure configuration being managed with spreadsheets, okay? You are lucky you haven't seen that. So it took about 10 to 15 years to mature and to have the infrastructure as code as a de facto practice. So do I expect 15 years for compliance as code? I think with all the Gen AI technology, I hopefully will not be there. On the other side, I think compliance is many times fold more complex than infrastructure as code, which is DevSecOps. People were technical. It was with a confined business unit. In compliance, we see these many personas across many business units, different type of skills. So just in your plans with compliance modernization, don't expect that to be done by second half of the year. This is something that will take many years to get there. And again, I cannot underline enough, your cultural change will be the one that will be the longest.
I'll just add, that said, you can get a faster time to value by just bringing the AI into the assessment process and the discovery process. So often we'll come into a situation where there's a lot of bespoke documentation on policy and procedure. There's kind of a mix of infrastructure as code and legacy systems. Gathering all that together and then ragging that, vectorizing that, reviewing that, questioning that through the LLMs, you actually discover a lot of unknown unknowns. And there's been a lot of tribal knowledge in these enterprises where now the LLMs can help surface those. Lots of components in the component model that the CISOs and security team didn't even know existed until the LLM process surfaces. So time to value, I think, is very rapid. Time to perfection, that might take years.
So please join our OSCAL Compass to help contribute to this content and accelerate this path.
I think the other thing there is that the analogy with infrastructure as code is kind of interesting because we used to use Chef, and you kind of could pick up a recipe. So if you wanted to deploy a system, there was a recipe for Chef, and you just do that. And the thing that's challenging, I think, with compliance is, even though the regulation is the same and the control is the same, the implementation in the company is very, very specific to that company or that organization. So one company might say, well, we use this tool for our backups, and another company says something different. And so there's not that kind of, the thing that's going to make it take longer is that there isn't that kind of commonality that you can take a solution from there to there. You have to think in that more abstracted fashion of how do we talk about controls, how do we have tools that help us, but the company's still going to have to make their own policy and procedure and all that kind of fun stuff.
Not yet.
Okay, one last question. I still don't see any questions from the audience. So, Robert, what does a CISO's day look like in 5 years as AI becomes more integrated into all aspects of the tech stack and operations?
Yeah, I would say that the thing that humans are good at is judgment, right? So there's always going to need to be a human in the loop to provide the trustworthiness, no matter how many proofs we have or mathematics we delve into. Human organizations are human, so they're going to need to trust an expert on compliance and the use of AI, how those AI models are trained, and the whole pipeline to how you ingest data, the provenance of data. I guess for me, the crystallizing moment is for those of you who have had to be part of an incident response or a breach response, and you're usually immediately brought into the C-suite. Usually there's outside counsel and often regulatory officers. And suddenly the CISO's job is to be fact-based and to provide that subject matter expertise in a moment of crisis. I don't see that role going away with an LM anytime soon. I think the gravitas and the judgment and the expertise that humans bring to the loop will always be an important part of the process. And I think the skill set that a CISO will need in 5 years will be applying AI in the right places and applying human judgment to counterbalance that.
I think every CISO in the room was hoping you'd say drinking Mai Tais on a beach, right? So, yeah, no, I agree. I think it's that interesting piece where there's the intersection between a technology problem and a business problem. This is a business risk. We're accepting this business risk. That decision is hard to sort of push into an LLM because it's going to be very, very contingent on lots of different factors.
Very good. Any final comments? But otherwise, if you're all done on the stage, thank you for attending, and please give a hand to our panelists.